cultural contracts theory and how the theory explains how people negotiate their cultural identities when they interact with other humans. When two people meet for the first time, there is usually one goal in mind, and they try to reach that goal through the things they say and do. Usually, people are concerned with uncertainty reduction, and they navigate that through identity negotiation. To decrease uncertainty, people try to increase predictability. When people don't have predictability, they feel like they are going in blind to a conversation, which is why a lot of people hate situations like networking, cold calling, or door-to-door selling. They try to navigate these situations through cognitive and behavioral social cues. Cognitive cues tell us what a person is thinking, or give us clues about what that person is thinking about us. Behavioral cues give us insight into what a person might say or do. The ways in which we navigate around those behavioral and cognitive cues are the ways in which we negotiate our identity. Identity negotiation refers to the identities we choose to engage in a particular interaction or conversation. The motivation for choosing one identity over another is to secure our self-image or save face. In cultural identities, we choose which values we are going to negotiate. Cultural contracts theory was constructed to describe interactions between white and non-white persons. As you can imagine here, there are many cultural values that can be exchanged, accepted, or rejected in a conversation between two contrasting individuals such as these. In a country where diversity is growing and so many identities exist, difference is something people are always interacting with. Jackson argues that where there is difference, there is conflict, but he does also say that conflict does not always have to be a bad thing. Conflict does cause tension, though, usually for the non-white person in the interaction. During conflict, non-white persons often feel their cultural identities being pulled in different directions as they struggle to choose which parts of themselves to disclose or which parts to hide. Before we go any further, it is important to understand the term negotiation. Scholars often equate identity negotiation to an agreement between the two individuals in the relationship about what their roles will be. In other words, it is an establishment of who is who in the relationship. In cultural contracts theory, the agreement is based more on the decision of whose identity will be the dominant. Throughout the cultural contracts theory, Jackson uses three contracts to explain how interactions occur within relationships. The first of these contracts is the ready-to-sign contract, or the assimilation contract. In this contract, the minority individual takes on the dominant culture. It can be either temporary or long-term, and in this case, the majority rules. If you have ever seen the movie White Chicks, then you have seen a demonstration of the assimilation contract when the Wayans brothers pretend to be two white women in an undercover mission. Usually, when the minority takes on the dominant culture, it is usually a forced contract. The second contract is a quasi-completed contract, or the adaptation contract. In this contract, both parties take on small parts of the other identity. Neither identity is dominant, and this usually happens in a short-term relationship. For dominant cultures, quasi-completed contracts are usually voluntary, and the individual has nothing to lose. For minority cultures, quasi-completed contracts, like the ready-to-sign contracts, are often forced. For example, when black individuals change their voice to sound more white on the phone, they are trying to combat the prejudices that they usually experience. In this way, the dominant identity is being taken on for a short amount of time. The last contract is referred to as a co-created contract. This relationship is the strongest. In this interaction, both identities are mutually validated. Differences are acknowledged and valued, and identities are not exchanged or negotiated. Co-created contracts can be seen in romantic interracial relationships. In these situations, both identities are respected and maintained, and neither person feels the need to negotiate their cultural identity. Many scholars have applied the cultural contracts theory to interactions between white and African American individuals. However, I think it's important to understand situations where both the white and black identities are dominant. In order for this to occur, an individual must exist who possesses an identity that is inferior to both the black and white identities, and that is the biracial individual, who is ironically mixed with white and black. To better understand this context, let me explain where the tension occurs for the biracial individual. Instead of the tension existing inside the individual as they struggle to choose between their internal identity and the external identity they are interacting with, for the biracial individual, that tension exists both internally and externally. In other words, the biracial individual is trying to navigate the black and white divide in their physical and mental makeup, as well as the societal divide between black and white cultures. Instead of belonging to either side of the color line and navigating around the opposing culture, biracial individuals are walking this fine line many of us have heard referred to as the color line. Blackness and whiteness is heavily defined in the media, with every white show having a black equivalent. However, biracial individuals do not have a defined identity. Therefore, they must solely rely on the identity created through their interactions with other people. In other words, walking along the color line is no balancing act. Instead, biracial persons find themselves constantly negotiating their identity with both cultures instead of one. It is like playing hopscotch, jumping from blackness to whiteness based on how others perceive you. To better understand how cultural contracts theory can be applied to the biracial experience, I chose to review a case study of a mixed-race comedian named Trevor Noah. Noah's mother was a black woman from South Africa, and his father was a white man from Switzerland. Noah discusses his experience growing up mixed in South Africa in this video. As we watch the video, see if you can identify the ways Noah demonstrates one or all of the cultural contracts discussed earlier in the video.
Months. Believe me when I tell you, this guy is a superstar in the making, coming to you all the way from South Africa. Put your hands together. Show your love for our friend, Mr. Trevor Noah!
I'm glad to be here, man. This was my dream. My dream was to come to America, not for a job or money or anything. I've got a great life back home. I always came here because I wanted one thing, and that is I always wanted to be black. I grew up in South Africa during a time known as apartheid. And for those who don't know, apartheid was a law in the country that made it illegal for black and white people to mix, which was awkward for me because I grew up in a mixed family. With me being the mixed one in the family. My mother's a black woman, South African, and my father's Swiss, from Switzerland. So he was a white man. And, he still is. It's not like he changed. I say that like through hard work and determination, he became black. No, that did not happen. And sir, you're fine. I see the white guy going, is that part? No, it's not possible. You are fine, sir. He's still very white, very white. And so they got together, my parents, black mom, white dad, which was against the law, but they didn't care. They were mavericks, Yeah, my mom was like, woo, I don't care. I want a white man, woo. And my dad was also, you know how the Swiss love chocolate, So he was in there. And so they got together, and they had me, which was illegal. So I was born a crime, which is something they never thought through, because as a family, we didn't live together normally. Like in the streets, my father had to walk on the other side of the road, and he could just wave at me from far, like a creepy pedophile. So. My mom could walk with me, but if the police showed up, she'd have to let go and act like I wasn't hers every time. Like, woo! Like, it's not mine. It's not mine. Felt like a bag of weed. And one fateful day, because I was never given a race, I was never called black, never called white, I had the privilege of meeting an American, and he said to me, well, Trevor, it's funny you say that, because if you come out to America, they'll label you as black. I said, really? He said, hell yeah. Everybody's black out there. I was like, well, I want to be black. Yeah. I bought myself a plane ticket because I found out it's true. Mixed race people are categorized as black in America. Yeah, the only catch is you have to be successful first. Before that, they call you mixed, achieve success, and you get upgraded to black. All the famous mixed people have done it. Singers like Alicia Keys and Mariah Carey, mixed, but they say black, right? Tiger Woods, mixed, but they say black golfer. The most famous mixed person on the planet, Barack Obama, mixed, half and half, but you say your first black president. When he was running, he was the mixed candidate. Now it seems obvious. People are like, yeah, he won. Back then, nobody believed he would win. I remember comedians dissing him. They'd come up and be like, how many of y'all seen that mixed race fool running for president? Y'all see that crazy-ass mixed fool? How's some mixed fool gonna come in? Even a black man can't win. This mixed fool thing gonna win. He gonna win. Ain't no mixed fool. I ain't seen no mixed fool coming out here winning in the United States. That mixed fool, that mixed fool. And then he won, and all of a sudden they were like, So I see. And I wanted black. So I bought myself a plane ticket. Yeah, 18 hours of flying. That's what I had to sit through. 18 hours of non-stop flying. I didn't sleep a wink. I sat on that plane and I watched every single black American movie and TV show I could find just so I could practice being black. I was not going to mess up that black opportunity. I just sat there like a madman in my chair, just like watching movies, practicing. Yeah, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, you laugh, but I landed in Miami and I was fluent in my black American. For shizzle my nizzle. I was just, yeah. I was so black. I was even laughing black. I was like, ha. Yeah, my man. I was super black. Till some guy came up to me and was like, oh yeah, papi. Yeah, vamos, eh? 18 hours of flying and I still wasn't black. I was Puerto Rican. You guys have been great. Thanks for having me. Ladies and gentlemen, keep it going for Trevor Noah!
Noah demonstrates all three contracts in his stand-up. Obviously, he performs the ready-to-sign contract when he discusses his desire to be black and comes to America for that purpose. His parents illustrate the quasi-completed contract when they choose not to show signs of their romantic relationship in public. In this example, they both negotiate their identities by playing the role that society has assigned to them. Lastly, Noah demonstrates a co-created contract with the audience as he openly defines his identity to the audience, who validate his identity by applauding and laughing at his jokes. Some of the strengths of the cultural contracts theory is that it recognizes difference. Often, difference is ignored and is further replaced by the assumption of similarity and agreement, which kills potential for true, genuine conversation. Those who are different are automatically cast out from the conversation. Cultural contract theory, though, emphasizes the need for differences to be embraced. Also, the theory recognizes power structures and the expectation for minorities to be the ones to adjust. Also, the theory differentiates between race and culture and recognizes that one's race and culture do not always coincide. These strengths make the theory important to rhetorical theory because if people, especially those with dominant identities, can engage in co-created contracts, then humans can be real and raw with each other and willing to have difficult conversations which have for so long been ignored. Some of the weaknesses of the theory are that the theory assumes that the contracts will strictly be between white and non-white persons. The theory does recognize conflict, but does not give adequate guidelines for handling it. Also, the explanation of the contracts is very brief and does not give in-depth demonstration. So I'd like to give a shout out to these few scholars who gave me the basic information I needed to make this video. Also, a shout out to two of my classmates, Courtney and Katie, for giving me the awesome idea to put cool soundtracks in my video. And lastly, a shout out to Ron Vaughn for giving me the opportunity to complete this project.